want to comment something. And you
Mm,
never think about things, speaking about in the disabled community, you don't never think about things until things happen to you, right?
mhm, mhm,
And speaking about that, you said you are a teacher. So can you tell us a little bit about your teacher story and how do you handle being a person with a disability and the students? Do they ask you about your situation or how do you handle that?
so I've been a teacher going on 20 years this September. And I, when I became a teacher in 2006, there weren't a lot of jobs. There were none actually. So, like many Ontario certified teachers, I had to go international. And I traveled the world a fair bit teaching and gaining up experience and came back and then got married and traveled again and came back and um, was teaching in very special education schools. And my specialty was dealing with helping at-risk youth. The more behavioral, the better. The crazier the classroom, the better. I loved it. I got involved with children with autism as well, and I became a spec ed specialist, and I absolutely adored it. I taught elementary school as well as middle school, and in high school, I'm certified JK to 12. I even tried my hand at administration for a time, and it wasn't for me. It really was not my cup of tea, and so went back into the classroom where I'm much happier. Um, but it was about 2017, 2018 that I started to notice a pain and weakness in my left leg, and then it spread to my right leg. And then I was literally walking down the steps with my 6-month-old firstborn. My left leg gave out, and um, she was fine, but I fell down the steps. And then it spread into my left leg, and then spread into my arms, and into my throat, and into my face. And then the numbness came and the weakness, and then every 8, 9 months, something else happened. And it went from needing a cane to needing medical crutches to um, needing a walker and rollator to needing a scooter, motorized scooter, to then needing a wheelchair, an electric wheelchair. And I looked around and I never saw teachers with disabilities growing up. In fact, I had ever only heard of one teacher with a disability um, who taught in the public system, and she teaches in Toronto. And I was shocked because in the area I teach in, as far as I know, I'm the only one because most of the time, while my area is actually pretty accommodating and they want to make changes and it is a process, I think a lot of people are just like, I can't keep doing this. But I'm early 40s with a young family. Um, and there is nothing wrong with my mind. And there is just a need for some physical accommodations. And I thought, no one had ever seen a teacher in a wheelchair before, like what I've heard. But then I found out that in, like, for example, the Catholic school system, there were four wheelchair using teachers. And one of them I'm close friends with now. And three EAs. And that's just in this Catholic system. Because each system, like each kind of like geographic areas, has a public system. There's actually four education systems: public English, Francophone, um, public Catholic, and then public French Catholic. And I just know about the ones in the one of the other four systems. And so um, I didn't realize that. I was like, I thought I was this great pioneer. And I realized that no, it's there are people there. It's just that representation is slowly coming. But um, for how the kids react, I love one of the reasons I love teaching is because like it always comes out wrong, but I hate adults in the way that working with adults, they're petty and they're argumentative and they're like they take everything so personally. And teenagers, I can just close the door, and elementary school students too, and it was just oh, relaxing. Yes, there were issues, but you knew why those issues existed, and they didn't care, and they didn't ask. When they did ask, they were like they were respectful of it. they they weren't rude about it, and it's you could tell that the inappropriateness that adults give towards disabled people is not woven into our DNA. It's learned because children and teenagers, I've never been offended or felt discriminated against by any of them that I've taught in all my years. Adults, good grief, I don't have enough fingers and toes to count.
Yeah, cause sometimes people think that children are cruel, but they are thought to be that way. They're not like if they see people with a disability, for example, in my case, I prefer people to ask me what happened with me or why I'm in a wheelchair or something, than something to that somebody to think that you had an accident or something. I didn't. That's not what happened. The my disability is I born with it, so we born with it because Chief and I have the same one. Cause yeah,
Yeah, me and Sophia have spina bifida, so I understand where you're coming from. And I'm going to touch on this too. Steve, you're exactly right when you say kids are more accepting than adults. You're 1,000% right. And I think there needs to be a better understanding towards that because kids see it every day with their classmates and their friends that are in the school system, but adults don't. They see it too, but they don't see it as much and they're not educated.
Yep.
yeah,
Sophie, you want to do the next one?
yeah.
Or do you want to ask?
Um, do you feel society needs better adaptive equipment?
Yes.
And what?
It's so I mean it's you know in Ontario, they said it would be accessible 100% accessible by 2025. Well, that did not happen. But even for example, more and more disabled people are becoming spouses and parents. I recently, last year, maybe 2 winters ago, I had a meeting with one of the city council members because I could not get to the part of the playground where the swings were kept because my kids love the swings, and I'll put both of them in there and I'll literally just sit behind them and push them um, back and forth, but I couldn't get to it because there was a concrete median that kept the wood chips in, but kept anyone with a wheelchair out. But I also said even with strollers, stuff like that. So I met with them, and they kind of like a a quarter out for wheelchair people. But I also the technology, like for example, accessible playgrounds, you know, accessible swing sets, these things are coming up more frequently, but the fact is that it has to come from both directions. So they're doing a lot of accessibility for senior citizens, a lot of accessibility for teenagers or children, but not a lot of accessibility for teenagers to late 40s. And so there needs to be equipment where, and I'm not saying that people need to foresee everyone's need, because that's not possible and it's unreasonable to say that. In that case, you need to have the funds to prepare it. But they need the accessible equipment for really three things. One, so a disabled person can fulfill the maximum potential they have to contribute to society and make a livable wage. Two, that the disabled person, we're not looking for a handout. Okay, we are all looking just to basically have the playing field leveled out. Two, we need to have the equipment that makes it necessary to live a fulfilling life on the same level as the rest of society. Okay, I'm not looking for, fancy doodads or fancy, a free ride, but, the national parks in America have like action trackers where you can like have the tank treads so you can go off-road hiking. Okay, why do we not have that more frequently in Canada? They're very rare in the national parks. And the third and final thing is that as disabled people, we need equipment to like contribute to society, make a living wage, to have a quality of life that is equal to everyone else, equitable to everyone else. And the third is to also have the ability to contribute to our own destinies. I love it. There was a doctor's office once downtown where the lift for the elevator lift was, they said, oh, for the key, come in to see the doctor's office, which is up the stairs. And so I called them. I said, how am I going to do that? They said, oh, well, we'll send someone out with the key. I was like, and then I got there and they said, oh, well, you're late for your appointment. I was like, are you joking? And so people don't think that they'll create technology or they'll create accessibility, but they actually haven't had a person. I know I'm speaking from a wheelchair point of view, but they haven't had a person with a disability try it out. I'm finding a lot more barriers as I lose control of my hands than I do being in my wheelchair.